History teachers must be able to communicate rhetorically by lecturing, analyzing documents, asking questions, creating tests, and forming rubrics. To help explain this concept, I interviewed Matthew Prevost of Brandon High School.
The story of history, like that's the biggest skill. Like if I teach my AP kids, I was just talking about it today. Like the ability to piece together the past, not just take some secondary document like a textbook, be like, oh, this is right because some textbook says it's right. Well, half the time textbooks are made for American school classes.
In a journal titled, Giving a Good Lecture by Paola Damasio, a published professor in London, it's explained that lecturing requires heavy planning and rhetoric. She explains that the teacher must know their audience as well as being entertaining and humorous at the right times.
When we were studying World War I in my wars class, we were studying, do we really want to get involved in this war? And the reason was because trench warfare is so stupid. If we're going to join this war, like, we're going to have to do that. So the literal question that I wrote on the board is, do you want a piece of this? It's like I literally wrote on my board, do you want a piece of this? And I even spelled it like D-I-S, question mark, right? So, I mean, I would never talk to a colleague like that, or I'd never write a paper like that. But when I'm having a discussion with my kids, it just makes sense to kind of jokingly talk with, I guess you'd call it slang or whatever. Yeah, I do that. I mean, you're still going to get really good answers, but you're just simplifying the question.
Teachers need to be able to analyze and understand primary documents. They will base a lecture around their findings about a certain document. For instance, Prevost based a lecture around Hitler's famous book Mein Kampf. He explains his findings about the document to the class and opens a class discussion that's very engaging.
What I try to do is frame everything around like a big overarching critical question. So it doesn't want to be something where there might even be just one right answer.
Another example of the use of questions appears in a study about the practices of 3 high school history teachers in the Social Studies Journal. Kalamazoo High School teacher, Ashley Versma, came to an interesting conclusion. Each teacher used questions as a tool to push students to think more deeply and gain a better understanding of history. By asking questions, these teachers were interacting with the students, rather than acting as the sole source of knowledge in the class or relying only on the textbook. Many history teachers create their own test questions. Prevost explains that he makes his own tests because his questions ask kids to develop a skill rather than remember a fact. He provided a very good example in an AP World History test. The first 4 questions are about a primary document. The document is an excerpt from a treaty between leaders in ancient times. This question is a perfect example of asking the student to demonstrate an ability to analyze a piece rather than the ability to memorize facts. Prevost provided one of his prompts from his AP World History essay exam. In it, he provides the time allowed and specific directions. He stresses the student must create a thesis, develop an argument, use the content of the document, source the document, provide context, provide other evidence, and synthesize the information. All these forms of communication are needed to become a successful history teacher.